Good afternoon. My name is Daniela Vono. I work at Population Europe and I'll serve as moderator for this event today. And it's my pleasure to welcome the editors of the Research Handbook on the Sociology of the Family, Michaela Kreyenfeld. She's professor of sociology at the Hertie School in Berlin, and Norbert Schneider, who is professor of sociology and director of the Federal Institute for Population Research in Wiesbaden. We'll start this event with a short presentation by the authors and afterwards we'll have a more informal conversation. So please go ahead, Professor Schneider. I will share your slides now. 1 second.
Okay, thank you, Daniela, for this short introduction, and thank you for all of you attending this event. I would like to start with a discussion of a short question. The question is, why is family of high research interest, especially for sociologists? And I would like to say family is a place where privacy and society, where us and me, where love and emotion, as well as rationality and utility, intersect in very specific ways. The nature of these intersections, their changes over the life course, possible differences between different social classes and regions, that is what family sociologists are interested in. Also of interest is to see how social actors reconcile these conflicting areas every day, how they create the right balance between the two sides. How people live and shape the family is determined partly by their preferences and needs, of course, but is also shaped by the restrictions and opportunities of social structures, for example, gender relations. The interplay between what people want and what they are supposed to do makes the family particularly attractive, an attractive object of research too. To make a last point, family has a dual character. Family as a unit is of interest in the relationships to other people or in the interaction with the constraints and requirements of society and of social structures. And on the other side, family as a social group with single actors, what a family member was as an individual in the relationship with the other family members is also an important area of research. My second topic I want to address is the question, is there a European family sociology? And let me start with a short preliminary remark. The question is there a European family sociology? And from my point of view, the answer is we are on the way to it. However, coming back to the actual question, what is the current standing of European family sociology? I would like to mention 6 points. The first one is the development from during the last 30 years. The development from mainly country-specific studies to international comparative family research. Until the 1990s, family research was often limited to the national context. Since then, research has in some way internationalized in the sense that both international comparative family research and international cooperation and exchange have become more common. Research groups made up of scholars from multiple countries are carrying out an increasing share of family sociological research, large-scale comparative data projects such as the Family and Fertility Survey and its successors, the Generations and Gender Survey, have advanced comparative work on the situation and change of the family in Europe. One effect of such projects is a higher awareness of the country-specific patterns and a higher awareness of European megatrends of family change. Additionally, there is a growing interest in the question what the characteristics of family change in Europe are. Is there an increasing convergence of the family or a stable or even growing divergence? What we know now is family change in Europe follows similar directions, but difference in onset and pace of developments are significant. My second point, the scope of family sociology has expanded considerably over the past 30 years. The focus turned from the marital nuclear family to different forms of living arrangements. Family sociology is, in some respect, an old-fashioned term. What we are currently doing as researchers is something like the sociology of private life. My third point. Very remarkable are the changing forces on the family. To bring it to a formula from a mostly structural to a life course and a network perspective. Observable indeed is a move away from purely household-oriented towards network-oriented family studies. There is a greater consideration of the process-oriented dimension of family and a significant increase in research on internal family structures instead of morphological oriented research in the past. My fourth point, concerning theory-driven research, there is something like a changing idea of family from social institution to doing family. Based on a functional perspective, the idea of the family as a social institution or as a social system was dominating for decades. This idea is being replaced by the idea that families are forms of relationships and ways of life that are constantly under construction, being individually formed and shaped. The most concise description of this change is the perspective that the institutional being family is turning into the action-oriented doing family, or that role theory is being replaced by actor orientation. My fifth point. Very much significant for the current development of family research are developments in methods and data. The availability of large-scale data has clearly advanced the quality of family research and opened up new avenues for undertaking large-scale comparative research projects and for causal analysis. The trend towards improvements in the availability and the quality of data has advanced in tandem with the development of new methods for data analysis. While simple descriptive overviews can be highly influential and have a considerable value, they are becoming more and more rare. Maybe that's a pity. Large-scale panel studies and wide-ranging internationally comparative studies currently determine the data landscape. Moreover, in some countries, register data as well as linked register and survey data are available. This opens up completely new options for research. My last point, as far as I can see, there are several avenues for future research. I only want to mention 3 here. The first one, more needed, in my opinion, is a dyadic or a couple-oriented perspective. Family research so far is mostly individual-oriented. There is certainly more scope for examining and understanding how life courses in the family are linked and how seemingly joint decisions are made. That's what we have to be interested in more than before. Second point, in addition, the child's perspective is gaining in importance, particularly with regard to studies on post-separation family life and family well-being. In the past, family ends by divorce. Now we know family is only transformed by divorce into post-divorce families. And my last point, to further strengthening the scope and scientific relevance of family sociology, efforts should be more be made to expand its interfaces with related disciplines, particularly with family demography and family psychology. That's my very first introduction to this event. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Norbert. And my task is to present a little bit an overview of the structure of the book. Before I do this, I would like to very much echo what Norbert just said. Our handbook is a European handbook. If you look at the cover, we really purposefully selected Europe on the cover page because the scholars in this book, they do work on Europe. It's European family sociology, family behavior that is studied, and they define what really constitutes European family sociology. We were very lucky with our authors. We have been able to attract 40 authors to this volume. They contributed 27 chapters, and each chapter really contains a state-of-the-art description of family research in a particular area. And we cover these classical themes like partnership formation, fertility, separation, divorce, intergenerational relationships, but also new themes are covered in this book. Digitalization, how does digitalization impact research in the area of family behavior? How does digitalization impact families? Also themes like assisted reproduction, these are still emerging topics that are part of this book. And of course, it's a book also on theory. And if you discuss that with Norbert is always, well, we don't have any good theory anymore. The theory development is really lagging behind what we have in terms of empirical research. Much of our theories, they date back to the 60s and 70s, and they try to explain contemporary behavior, and that often doesn't work anymore. And many of the chapters here echo this feeling. There are new approaches that are assembled in this book to advance theory, but also to employ all theory and be very critical and alert the reader not to naively use existing theories, but very much reflect whether they still apply and how they should be modified to really matter. So this is very much the content of the book. And of course, in this very short presentation, it's really difficult to summarize what is in these many pages and what the authors contributed here. So I needed help from digital technology, and Daniela, if you could put on the next slide, I put the abstracts into a word cloud to help me with a little image of the book. And sometimes these word clouds, they work, sometimes they don't work so well. But I think in this case, our book produced a nice word cloud. It shows really the content of the book, that it's on family, families, it's on Europe, European, but also research is in orange, very prominent in this word cloud, because it's a research handbook. It gives you really state-of-the-art, cutting-edge research in the area of family sociology. And with that little image, I think we have to stop screen sharing now, although the image is very beautiful. I give to Daniela, who volunteered to share this session.
Thank you so much for this very rich, exciting presentation. And there are many questions now that I would like to ask you, but I'm sure the audience also have lots of questions. So please feel free to post your questions in the Q&A function, and you'll come back to them at the end of this conversation. So I would like to take a step back before we move on and look at the process of writing this book. Why did you decide to edit the handbook, and why the two of you?
No, but you have to unmute yourself.
You have to unmute
yourself. That question first.
That shouldn't happen anymore. Yeah, the answer is simple. Professor Hans-Peter Blossfeld, the editor of the Research Handbook in Sociology series, approached me in early 2018 with the idea to edit in between of these series a handbook on the sociology of the family in Europe. I was quickly convinced of the offer and had a first idea of the structure of such a volume. However, I also knew that I could not manage it alone. It was really impossible. So I briefly considered who could best promote such a project together with me, and I quickly realized that it could be Michaela. Therefore, I asked her. And to my surprise, she agreed immediately. As expected, it was a great pleasure to work together with her on the project, and it was really an intensive work. But I think she will agree. It was a wonderful project.
Would you like to say something, Michaela?
Well, I very much agree, Norbert. I still remember when we actually decided on that. It was during my sabbatical, and I was like, well, I have time, I can embark on this endeavor. And usually that is a mistake to say that one has time, because that turns out to be not the case. But in this case, it worked out, and I could make the time to work on it. It was a great pleasure to work with all the people involved, and in particular also the authors who contributed to that endeavor.
Fascinating.
And of course, I would.
I know that they're connected. So it's...
Sorry, I would add one point. Of course, this handbook is edited by Michaela and by myself, but of course, a lot of other people have very important contributions. And I would like to thank especially Anna Dechant, who helped us from the BIP very much over a long period of time. And with her support, I think we will not have finished the work yet. Great.
May I ask you, which audience did you have in mind when you wrote this book? Are you only thinking about scholars, or we're thinking about a broader audience, policymakers, stakeholders from civil society?
Maybe I can take that question because I think this research handbook, and I also heard that from others who had a chance to read it, that it's very great for teaching because each individual chapter contains really a summary of the state of the art in a particular theme. So you can just take out a chapter and use it for class. But I don't think it's limited to that. It is very much written in a very clear language. It's very accessible. So it's also very accessible to the broader audience. But last but not least, it is a scholarly book. It is a research handbook. So also for scholars in the field, the individual chapters are very informative because it tells you in each segment what is the state of the art, what are the foundational readings, what is the empirical state of the art, where is the research gap, and where can we advance this field. So I think it caters to a lot of audiences.
So I'm curious about the contributors to the book. You have gathered young scholars, senior scholars, many women, many colleagues from all over Europe. How did you select the contributors?
From the beginning on, for both of us, it was clear that we only want to invite outstanding colleagues in their area of expertise. We wanted to work on a really high qualitative research handbook. And we wanted to include perspective from different European countries to make the book truly European. Another criterion besides quality and a wide range of countries, another criterion was to ensure a broad diversity in terms of age, of gender, and of research perspectives of our authors. And contacting them, we quickly learned, this was a very powerful experience at the beginning, we quickly learned that an open access offering is crucial to attracting good scholars. And we believe that this measure, and Michaela pushed it very, very much, and I'm very thankful for that. That this measure, and as far as I know, it was the first open access book produced by Edward Elgar, may have positively influenced the motivation to participate. And in fact, and I think this is a very good success, we initiated 29 chapters. And Michaela mentioned it already, 27 were realized just in time.
That's amazing. And for the colleagues who would like to follow your example and edit a handbook on another topic, how much time should they save for this process?
Can I take this question, Daniela? Maybe I can say, before I answer, let me get back a little bit to what Norbert said, because this book is really, we are the editors officially, but it's a book, a contribution of 40 authors who contributed. And they contributed mostly by sticking to the deadlines. We pushed mightily in some cases, but I mean, that is the authors who really work together with us, and it's a work on the authors. But one has to be realistic. A chapter in an edited volume, that's not very super attractive for authors. So we have to give them something back. And this is what Norbert said, well, we offered open access. So that is what we offered to them. And that was the bargaining, I would say. And we also provided a solid editing process, and that involved not only us two, but there were really a lot of help that we got from others. We got help from our institutions, the Hertie School and the BIP supported us with the open access costs. We had professional language editing for each chapter. We had colleagues who helped us reviewing each paper. We had colleagues like Anna Deschamps in particular, who helped us with giving comments to the authors. We had student assistants and assistants doing the nitty-gritty formatting. So it was not our work alone. And then last but not least, we sent everything to Elgar. We thought we all did a great job. It's all finished. And then they started polishing. And I worked with a lot of other publishers before, but I was really impressed by how careful Elga and how professional they conducted this process. It's really, they worked on the length of the hyphens they had to fit. So it's really a really quality work they did, and also the proofreading process. So they sent the proofs to the authors. The authors could make as many changes as they want and as many rounds as they wanted to really assure high quality. But of course, assuring high quality takes a lot of time. So I actually looked up this morning in the calendar when we started, and Norbert, we met on the 20th of March 2018 here in Berlin to decide on that project. And then we sent out the first letters in July 2018. So altogether, it took almost 3 years before that got published. And it just takes that time to review, to work on the different rounds that you have to do, and to really assure quality control. It is a matter of time, though, and has to be realistic in that sense.
Yeah, I would like to add, yes, we started in early 2018, but already at that time, we said we want to finish this process in September 21, and that's what we did.
Wow. So let's move back to an aspect that you raised during your presentation, and I think everybody here would like to hear more about it. So why do you claim that we need an European perspective on the sociology of family? What a European family sociology is meant to be?
Yeah, I can start, and then Michaela can contribute also. I think a European family sociology is needed. And it is needed because theories and explanations developed mostly in an US-American context do not necessarily fit to European contexts in terms of specific cultural constellations, welfare systems, historical traditions, and of course, in the States, there are a lot of questions being asked, but not all of them are important for a European context, and there are questions relevant for Europe that are not asked so much in the States. This is one point. And another point is a more, let's say, science political one. I think it is important to establish an independent European research and internationally recognized publication space in distinction to the US-American publication system. It has something to do with power, of course. And one main intention of the book is to contribute to this process. Michaela.
Norbert, you were frozen in my computer for a second, but I think you said Michaela in the end.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, I think maybe I can only support you and second you on what you said, but maybe I can make it more explicit based on example that, of course, in the US-American context, and that has been really the, yeah, we have of course copied many theories, many approaches from this role model, but some things don't work, and in particular, we have a whole chapter on family and society, and we have that for good, not a whole section with several contributions, because in the European context, the welfare state, the policies of individual countries that matter much more to define family behavior than this is the case in the US, where there is actually little family policies. That is very particularly European, and of course the particular European thing is also we have particular European theories like in demographic transition theory to explain family behavior in European countries is very particular, and also very much relies on this idea that we have different cultural contexts and very different policies which guide behavior, just to give an example.
Thank you.
I would like to add,
sorry.
I would like to add one point. That's true. And I would like to say we have had the idea that this book is especially for students and for peers, but also for people working in the area of family policy, family counseling, and so on. Something like applied research is also presented in this handbook, and this was the intention we have had from the beginning on.
And is there any highlight chapter, or I would like to hear more about the chapters, if you consider there are chapters that are more relevant, more important, you cannot miss this chapter, or is all of them are equally important?
Well, of course, I read each single chapter very, very carefully, and I enjoyed them, and I learned a lot by each single chapter. And to be honest, it would be a bit odd to highlight one and the other. But I know, Daniela, you have some voices recorded of the authors to say a little bit about their chapters. Maybe you want to share that with us.
I'll share a surprise video for everyone.
Hi, my name is Jan van Bavel. I'm a professor of sociology and demography at the University of Leuven in Belgium. And I absolutely wanted to contribute a chapter on partner choice and partnering markets to this handbook, because I think this has become the most exciting field of research in family sociology and family demography in recent years, because there's been important shifts with respect to gender roles, gender norms, gender expectations, so the way we are doing gender in general, and also with respect to information and communication technology that have had very large impact on partnering markets. So the share of couples formed with the help of the internet has increased tremendously. We are only now starting to really investigate the new kinds of couples that are being formed in this way. So I'm looking forward to future studies looking at this and hoping to contribute to them myself too.
Hello, my name is Dimitri Mortemans from Antwerp University in Belgium. I was very excited to contribute to this handbook, research handbook of the sociology of the family, even though I did not write the most happy story. My chapter was about causes and consequences of divorce. So it's about the end of a couple relationship. The most important part of my chapter considers the causes and the consequences of divorce. And for causes, we need to be careful, because we talk in divorce research about divorce risks. It's never determined if you have one of these risk factors that your relationship will end. We only look in research on what increases the probability of splitting up and what decreases it. And I look both at psychological and sociological factors. Psychological factors, for example, personality. And then the last part was on consequences of children. And even there are a lot of documented consequences for children. And what I did, I chose the educational attainment.
Why did I contribute to this handbook? Because it is an amazing common endeavor, and Michaela Kreyenfeld and Norbert Schneider, the editors, did a fantastic job in bringing together colleagues from all over Europe. My contribution is about children, parents, and their relations after a parental breakup. Overall, the post-divorce family does not exist, and for us as researchers, it is important to capture and analyze the different experiences and standpoints of individual family members. And we are also called to consider the enormous heterogeneity of post-divorce family members in terms of custody and contact arrangements, everyday family routines, different types of separation, for example, low versus high conflict breakup, different sets of children and their ages, different geographical distances, and also normative contexts in which these families live. Family complexity and blurred family boundaries are always a great challenge for researchers. If we want to understand the impacts of divorce, solving this heterogeneity puzzle will be one of our main research tasks in the future.
My name is Renzi Nieuwhuis, and with Jonathan Bradshaw, I contributed a chapter on poverty and the family in Europe. Different families face very different poverty risks that vary across countries and over time. Yet this variation cannot be understood only by looking at individualistic explanations. Structural and political explanations need to be considered as well. That is why we think a chapter on poverty fits well in a research handbook on the sociology of the family. Our chapter aims to explore family poverty and how it is mitigated by social policy in Europe. We discuss several concepts of poverty that are used in the EU. We discuss how policies that support increased employment have not been sufficient to reduce poverty. And finally, we detail the child benefit packages that are needed to fend off poverty among many families.
Hello, my name is Jasmin Passet-Wittig from the Federal Institute of Population Research. Together with my colleague Martin Bujar, we contributed a chapter on medically assisted reproduction in developed countries. The topic is relatively new, but as we see it, important for family sociologists. The relevance will likely increase as more and more children are conceived with medical help, challenging our understanding of what constitutes a family. The Research Handbook on the Sociology of the Family is a great opportunity to present this topic to a broad audience. The chapter provides an overview over legislation, reimbursement, and use of medically assisted reproduction. We also discuss research on how infertility and treatment experience affect individuals' well-being and on health and development of children conceived with MAR.
It's a great video and it gives so much insights on the richness of the book. Would you like to add something to it?
I don't know, no, but if you want to add, this is the first time I've seen this video, so it was really beautiful to see our authors in the different corners of the world contributing. In general, at a book launch, of course, we would all be here together and drinking champagne together. And I know that some of the authors, they are just connected, and all I can maybe say is that I hope we will have the champagne later and celebrate this book. And thanks again to the authors.
Yes, thanks to all of you from my side as well.
That's very nice. I would like to ask a final question and then we'll move to the questions from the audience. What would you consider to be the takeaway message if one reads the handbook as a whole? And in your opinion, how does the future of sociological research on families look like?
Yeah, I think it is really important to go on the way to the establishment of a European, a truly European family research. And to go on this way, I think more interdisciplinary collaboration is needed. More international cooperation is needed. I think family research, Michaela mentioned it already, I think family research often suffers on weak theoretical foundation. Therefore, more efforts in theory development is important. Helpful is a further growing variety of new methods for example, network perspective, or that is one chapter in our handbook, longitudinal qualitative research. I think this is one aspect for the future. And last but not least, I would like to say we need a stronger combination of old topics and old questions with new perspectives in family research. Michaela.
Fully agree. No, but nothing to add. And I see that we have already some questions in the chat, and we have only, I think, 15 minutes left. Maybe we should move on already. Daniela, what do you think?
All right, let's move on. So if you would like to write questions, there's still time to do so. So you just write it down. But I'll start with the first one, coming from Vilhena. He's asking for family sociology to be like for all science. You could research much more than you actually can. How do you prioritize research questions in your area? By available data? Which studies to carry out, which not?
I'll start, or do you want to start, Norbert?
No, it's your turn at that time. I have to think about this question.
This is a really excellent question, and I can answer this question from different perspectives, because I started my life as a family sociologist at the Max Planck Institute that does foundational research. So basically, you're not guided by social policy relevance or anything, but by really what science has produced, where the research gaps, and it's not immediately relevant for societal questions. And I moved to the Hertie school, and here the expectation is that I do social policy relevant research. And this is how I defined relevance for me. But I think that is very much in the eye of the beholder, I would say. Having that said, I think much of my research is guided by whether a project is funded or not. This is reality, I think, for most researchers, that you can't just do research, that you depend on funding, and that you convince your funders that a project is convincing, that funding is that they grant funding for a certain project. You mentioned availability of data in this chat, and of course, in particular quantitative families, sociologists, they are often guided by data. And I see that very much also in the young cohort with the big data that we have. I mean, echoing Norbert's concern that people spend so much time and searching for new data on the internet, assembling data on the internet, putting it in a nice figure and spending all their life on programming nice figures in R, and then forgetting the rest. And I think that is a development, and one should maybe consider that very seriously, how we spend our time, whether it is producing even nicer graphics or thinking more about theory and
Yes.
where we stand. Norbert.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thinking more about theories, and what I observe is a development from broader research questions in the past to smaller and smaller ones currently. I know the reasons, but I think this process is not positive in any respect. And so we have to widen our perspectives again. We have to address broader research questions, and within more interdisciplinary and internationally research groups and corporations. And of course, I'm the director of the Federal Institute for Population Research, and we one of our main tasks is policy advice. And of course, we should think about the possibilities of applied family research. I will not plead for we have to do applied family research now as much as possible. That's not what I mean, but we have to think about these possibilities for people's working in policies or counseling, to work with our results. And we should develop research questions, research methods, and publication strategies to address this important topic.
Okay, we have a question from Charmaine Fritsch. She's asking, can you please touch on the types of statistical analysis currently being used in family-based research besides the descriptive analysis mentioned by Professor Schneider?
Shall I start, Norbert, and then?
Yes.
Because I think also this question raises an important point, namely which methods do we use, and why do we innovate in a particular area? And I think what's very clear from my generation, longitudinal data analysis, that was the novelty of the 90s and 2000s, and a lot of longitudinal data have been collected, and from that method development also emerged, like new avenues for event history modeling, and with longitudinal data, causal modeling, fixed effects modeling, all that. Sequence analysis came up in the turn of the century. But now it's a bit of a question where family sociology is moving in the next round. We have in this book work by Laura Bernardi on longitudinal qualitative research, where the qualitative and quantitative research should actually unite more to understand certain types of behavior. Of course, we have also the influence of digital, our digital reality on family research. There's not so much, I think, compared to political science, where web scraping is I would even say dominating large parts of political science, which is not the case for family sociology yet. But of course, there are colleagues working on certain areas like Google searches to project fertility. These are new approaches, new types of data, new methods that are employed that I can think of at the moment as new avenues. But of course, I'm sure there are more.
Yes, I would like to add one thing. I addressed it already. What we do not have so far is our methods for analyzing data coming from couples. And I think this is one possibility for a successful future development of family research, to generate such data more than we do it currently, and to develop fitting methods for analyzing these data. This is one point I would like to make. And another one is we have a lot of improvements doing causal analysis or causal research. This is really very important, and we are becoming better and better in this respect compared to the situation in the 1990s. But on the other hand, it is really important to do descriptive research beside this as well. And I'm working as the editor of Comparative Population Studies, an international journal, and we decided in this year to open up a new possibility for people coming, especially from outside Europe, for descriptive articles only, because we can learn a lot from description, not only from causal analysis. And don't forget this. This is my message at this point.
Thank you. We have a question from Mustafa Firat, and he's asking that the book cover, it's the European map, but then the title of the book is a more general title. So the question is, does that imply that the content of the book applies to the context outside of Europe? So how much can we extrapolate on Europe here in the book.
Shall I answer that one?
Yes, please.
Well, I think that he has a very good point here that we didn't really select the title. The title was given to us and we inserted the content, but it would have been more precise to call this book European Family Sociology if that would have been our decision. But definitely it is, I think it is very, I think I would be cautious to generalize and to use the theories that were developed in the European context to use that for other contexts. That has always kind of a colonization approach. I think that needs a lot of care. So we focus particularly on the European context to understand behavior in European societies and also try to understand the theories that we were using in this context. So I would say in that sense, the book is limited to that region. But
yes, that's true. Of course, it is intended as a European handbook on family research from Europeans for the situation in Europe. And a lot of specific empirical findings are not able to transform it to other countries, but it is possible to do it concerning the development of methods and methodology or theory. And of course, we can have the idea that we develop or invest in these directions, and then we have the possibility that we will be recognized from outside Europe.
Great. We have a more general question here from Paula. And what is the level of collaboration do you encourage among the authors for a particular topic?
Michaela, will you start?
I don't think I get the question. Maybe you can type in the clarification.
The question is more like if you are in favor of collaboration among scholars. This is how far I understand. What is the level of collaboration do you encourage among the authors, or perhaps like if you expected that the authors of the different chapters somehow connected?
If they collaborated. Well,
this is how I understand.
In some cases, we sent chapters to the. We asked the authors to coordinate the content, and we send early versions of chapters to the others, and depending on the topic. Yes, if this is what the question is, yes, that was.
We hope we understood well, Kola. If not, you ask us.
Yeah.
So the next question is from Christina Schnorr, and she's asking, it was mentioned that this book presents state-of-the-art knowledge. How do you estimate the life expectancy of this book?
Is life expectancy a topic of the book?
No, she means because we have, of course, also the state-of-the-art empirical research.
Yes.
Is that book outdated in 2 years?
No, I don't hope so.
I would say
and I don't
no.
think so, yes.
No, it's not outdated. Of course, the empirics that needs to be updated, needs to be another edition at some point.
Yes.
But of course, the theory and the state of the art that we summarize, it's not that quickly that we advance in these areas. So that is, I think that's clear. But of course, since it is a mixture of empirics and theory, it needs an update at one point.
So let's move faster here because we are almost there with our time, but there are very interesting questions. Was it a pure coincidence that there appeared another handbook on family sociology in Europe, the Palgrave Handbook of Family Sociology in Europe this year, or do you think it's time to summarize the state of research?
Because of course it is time to summarize and to bring forward the research, and this Palgrave Handbook was edited by colleagues working in the European Sociological Association in the Research Network and Family, and I was more or less one co-author of this articles, of one of these articles. And I think it is good to have more activities in this respect to strengthen European research perspective on family.
Great. It's a very concrete question now. Is there a chapter on families of refugees in Europe?
Well, we don't have a specific chapter on that, but migration is a topic that runs through several of the chapters. We have one particular last chapter by Laura Merler and her colleagues on transnational families, where refugee families are very prominent in this chapter, but not a specific chapter only on refugee families, but they are part of family behavior of migrants in this. In the
migrants and fertility was another topic. Yes.
Great. So we go to the final question from Joara Zoltevele. She's asking, for the past decades, we had a tremendous development in research methodology and analysis techniques to study the family, but the steps have been smaller in terms of theory development. What is, in your opinion, keeping us from formulating new theories with the same speed?
Yes, Michaela. Please start.
Well, it's actually your question, Norbert, because that is something that you're always addressing, that where do the theories come from? I think that is a structural problem. I mean, I supervise dissertations. If you supervise dissertations, they are cumulative. Most students want to write cumulative dissertations, and they don't really have the space where you can develop ideas, new concepts. So I think we live in a time where we don't really have where there is really the scope to generate theories, because this is how science works at the moment, with small chapters, small journal articles published in higher ranked journals. So it's really difficult. I wonder where it should come from, but because we spend time on other things than trying to advance theory, in my view, at least in family sociology. I think in other areas, the monograph and trying to move forward a theory is still a bit more common. But, that's my a bit more negative perception of the current situation. But Norbert, you haven't even
yes, I agree, and of course it is a result of changing publication strategies. When I was a young researcher, people wrote books and not so much articles, and people read books. But now nobody wants to read a book. And some months ago, I talked to young researchers, and they told me from their point of view, it is not necessary to have even short theory chapters in research papers. And yes, from my point of view, I'm a family researcher for, I don't know, 30 years maybe. And a lot of questions addressed today were addressed 30 years ago as well. And a lot of results were generated also already 30 years ago. What changed is the quality of data. What have changed is the quality of methods, and so the validity and the reliability of the findings. But a lot of questions are not new, they are old. And we need in some way a roll back concerning the processes of qualifications of our young students and young scholars. And it is not only the number and the impact factor of journal articles. If you have a look on the statistics, how many readers do an empirical research article have? In average, one. That is, people often publicate for themselves or for their careers, not for the audience. This is a pity in my eyes, and I hope there will be some changes in the respect. And Michaela is right. Theory development takes time and it takes place. And we don't have time and we don't have space.
We shouldn't end
yes.
on only a pessimistic note. Maybe some positive. I think we collaborate more than before, and we collaborate across disciplines. And I think there is the potential, in particular, the collaboration across disciplines, that new ideas and new theories will emerge by our exchange with other disciplines and with colleagues.
So, yes.
And so let's finish on a positive note. And yeah, thank you all. And Daniela, I'm sure you'll have the final words.
Just final words to conclude. I'm very, very grateful for this this event, this conversation we had today. We are going to publish this book launch at the Population Europe YouTube channel, and we will mail all the registered participants with the link. So feel free to share this and to download the book and read and enjoy it. Thank you so much, and see you in the next event we organize. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you all
for giving us the opportunity to present our handbook.
It's our pleasure always.